Hi and welcome, everyone. Close your eyes for a moment. Take a deep breath. Now imagine that you can travel back in time. Not 100 years, not 1,000 years, but hundreds of thousands of years ago. The world looks completely different. There are no cities, no roads, no houses, no schools, no cars, no phones, no lights shining in the night. Only endless forests, wide grasslands, tall mountains, deep rivers, and animals much larger than anything you see today. The earth is wild, beautiful, and dangerous. Every sunrise brings hope. Every sunset brings uncertainty. In this world, there are no kings, no countries, no written language, no history books. There is only one goal: to survive. Somewhere in this vast world, a small group of humans begins another day. They have no maps, no machines, no modern tools. They only have their hands, their minds, and each other. Every decision matters. Where will they find water? Where will they find food? How will they stay warm? How will they protect their children from hungry animals? Life is never easy. But every challenge teaches them something new. Every mistake becomes a lesson. Every success becomes knowledge. Little by little, they learn. Little by little, they grow stronger. They do not know it yet, but they are beginning one of the greatest journeys in history, the journey of humanity. Everything you see around you today, every city, every bridge, every book, every airplane, every computer, every great civilization. It all began with these first humans. They were not rich, they were not powerful, they were not famous, but they had something extraordinary. They had courage, curiosity, and the determination to keep moving forward even when life was difficult. Without them, our story would never have begun. Today, we are going to travel back to that forgotten world. We will discover how the first humans lived, how they survived, how they learned, and how they took the first small steps toward building the civilizations we know today. This is not just the story of ancient people. It is the story of all of us, because every one of us carries a small part of their journey. So, our adventure begins at a time before cities, before kingdoms, before history was ever written. Let's go back to the very beginning. Welcome to Episode 1, The First Humans, Part 1. Before civilization, a wild world. Long before the first city was built, long before the first king ruled, long before anyone wrote a single word, the earth belonged to nature. Imagine standing in the middle of a vast grassland. There are no roads beneath your feet, no buildings on the horizon, only endless land stretching as far as your eyes can see. The wind moves through the tall grass. Birds circle high above. In the distance, a herd of giant animals slowly walks across the open land. This was the world of the first humans. A beautiful world, but also a dangerous one. Every day was a test of survival. There were no supermarkets, no hospitals, no police, no safe homes to return to at night. Food had to be found. Water had to be discovered. Shelter had to be built before darkness arrived. One mistake could cost a life. Nature was stronger than humans. Powerful storms could destroy everything in a single night. Long winters brought freezing temperatures. Heavy rains flooded rivers. Dry seasons left the land empty. The first humans could not control nature. They could only learn to live with it. The animals around them were just as dangerous. Some were much larger than modern elephants. Huge cats hunted silently through the grass. Powerful bears searched for food. Wild wolves traveled in packs. A single human had little chance against these animals. But humans had something different. They could think. They could observe. They could learn. Instead of relying on strength alone, they relied on intelligence. If one path was dangerous, they found another. If one hunting method failed, they created a better one. Every challenge became a lesson. This ability to learn would one day change the world. The climate itself was also changing. During the Ice Age, enormous sheets of ice covered large parts of the Earth. Some regions became too cold to support life. Others slowly became warmer. Animals moved from place to place in search of food. Humans followed them. Without realizing it, they were beginning one of the greatest journeys in history. They were becoming explorers. Every new valley offered hope. Every river could provide fresh water. Every forest might hide food or danger. Nothing was certain. Yet every sunrise brought another chance to survive. Life moved at the rhythm of nature. People woke with the sun. They rested after sunset. There were no clocks, no calendars. The seasons were their only guide. Spring meant new plants. Summer brought longer days. Autumn prepared them for colder months. Winter tested their courage and endurance. The first humans respected nature because they had no other choice. They understood something we sometimes forget today. Human beings are not separate from nature. We are part of it. The rivers gave life. The forests offered shelter. The animals provided food. The stars guided their journeys through the darkness. Every part of the natural world mattered. But perhaps the greatest challenge was uncertainty. The first humans never knew what tomorrow would bring. Would they find enough food? Would their children survive another winter? Would dangerous animals find their camp before sunrise? Every day required courage. Not the courage of heroes in stories, but the quiet courage of ordinary people who refused to give up. They learned to watch the sky, to read the footprints of animals, to understand the changing winds. Little by little, they became students of the natural world. Nature became their first teacher, and those lessons helped them survive in a world that seemed impossible to conquer. Yet something extraordinary was about to happen. Among all the creatures living on Earth, one species was beginning to think differently. Not only about survival, but about the future. The story of human civilization truly begins with them. Let's meet the first humans. Part 2. The first humans appear. Around 300,000 years ago, something remarkable happened. In Africa, a new kind of human appeared. These were Homo sapiens. They looked different from many earlier human species. Their bodies were not the strongest. They could not run faster than every animal. They did not have sharp claws or powerful teeth, but they possessed something far more valuable. A curious and creative mind. This gift would change the future of the world. The first humans did not live in large cities. They traveled in small groups, often made up of families and close friends. Some groups had only 20 or 30 people. Everyone knew one another. Everyone had a role. The adults searched for food. The strongest helped protect the group. The older members shared their knowledge. The children watched, listened, and learned. Every person mattered. Because survival depended on working together, the world was still full of danger. Every morning, the group had to make important decisions. Where should they go today? Which direction had more water? Where were the animals moving? Was it safer to stay here or continue walking? There were no maps, no signs, no one to tell them the right answer. They had to trust their eyes, their memories, and each other. Unlike many animals, humans could imagine the future. They could make plans. They could remember what happened yesterday and use that knowledge tomorrow. If one river dried up last summer, they remembered. If one valley was full of dangerous animals, they avoided it. Experience slowly became wisdom. This ability to learn from the past gave humans a great advantage. Another remarkable ability was curiosity. The first humans did not simply accept the world as it was. They explored. They asked silent questions. What is beyond those mountains? Where does this river lead? Can we find a better place to live? Curiosity pushed them forward. It encouraged them to leave familiar places and discover new lands. Step by step, generation after generation, humans began leaving Africa. Some traveled into the Middle East. Others continued into Asia. Many eventually reached Europe. Thousands of years later, their descendants would spread across Australia and the Americas. This was not one great journey. It was countless small journeys, one valley at a time, one river at a time, one generation after another. Most of these travelers never knew how important their journey would become. They were not trying to make history. They were simply searching for food, safety, and a better future for their families. But every step carried humanity farther across the earth. Every new land taught them something different. Cold climates required warmer clothing. Dense forests demanded new hunting skills. Open grasslands offered different animals and different challenges. Humans learned to adapt wherever they went. This ability to adapt became one of humanity's greatest strengths. Animals often depended on changing their bodies over thousands of years. Humans changed their ideas. They learned faster than they evolved. When life became difficult, they invented new solutions. When one method failed, they tried another. This flexibility helped them survive where many other species disappeared. Perhaps the greatest invention of these early humans was not a tool. It was cooperation. One person alone could accomplish very little. But a group working together could hunt larger animals, protect children, care for the elderly, share knowledge, and face dangers that no individual could survive alone. This simple idea changed everything. It marked the beginning of something much greater than survival. It marked the beginning of human society. Although they had no cities, no governments, and no written laws, they were already building the foundation of civilization. Yet surviving required more than intelligence and teamwork. Humans also needed better ways to find food, protect themselves, and shape the world around them. That is the story of our next chapter. How did the first humans learn to survive in one of the most dangerous worlds Earth had ever known? Part 3. Learning to survive. For the first humans, every sunrise brought the same question. How will we survive today? There was no guarantee of food, no promise of safety, no certainty about tomorrow. Life depended on the choices they made every single day. At first, humans used whatever nature gave them. A sharp stone became a knife. A strong branch became a spear. An animal bone became a useful tool. These simple objects may seem ordinary today, but thousands of years ago, they were extraordinary inventions. For the first time, humans were not simply accepting the world. They were changing it. Every new tool made survival a little easier. A sharper stone could cut meat more quickly. A stronger spear made hunting safer. A better tool saved time and energy. Little by little, humans learned that improving their tools could improve their lives. This was one of the first great lessons of civilization. Small improvements create big changes. Finding food was never easy. Some days the hunters returned with success. Other days, they returned with nothing. The group could not depend only on hunting, so they gathered fruits, nuts, seeds, roots, wild plants. Every member of the group helped. Children learned which berries were safe to eat. Older people remembered where water could be found during dry seasons. Knowledge became just as valuable as food. One mistake could be deadly. Eating the wrong plant, drinking dirty water, walking into the territory of dangerous animals. The first humans learned by watching carefully. They studied nature every day. They noticed the tracks animals left behind. They watched birds flying toward rivers. They learned which trees produced fruit in different seasons. Nature became their classroom. Experience became their teacher. One of the greatest human strengths was observation. Unlike many animals that relied mostly on instinct, humans could learn from each experience. If a hunting plan failed, they changed it. If a shelter collapsed during heavy rain, they built a stronger one the next time. Failure was not the end. It was information. Every mistake helped the next generation survive a little better. Families also played an important role. Parents did not simply feed their children. They taught them how to make tools, how to recognize danger, how to work together, how to respect nature. There were no schools, no books, no classrooms. Knowledge traveled from one generation to the next through stories, demonstrations, and daily life. Around the evening camp, children listened carefully to older members of the group. Every story carried an important lesson. Perhaps it warned about dangerous animals. Perhaps it explained where to find water. Perhaps it reminded everyone that courage and wisdom were stronger than fear. Long before writing existed, stories became humanity's first library. Each generation added new experiences. Each generation passed them forward. This sharing of knowledge became one of the greatest advantages humans ever developed. Animals inherited instincts. Humans inherited ideas, and ideas could grow with every generation. As humans traveled across new lands, they also became more creative. They discovered better ways to make stone tools. They learned how to use animal skins for clothing. They built stronger shelters using branches, leaves, and natural materials. They adapted wherever they lived. The world kept changing. Humans kept learning. This endless ability to adapt became the foundation of human success. Think about our lives today. We still survive by learning. We still improve through practice. We still pass knowledge from teachers to students, from parents to children, and from one generation to the next. The tools have changed. The world has changed. But one truth remains the same. Knowledge is humanity's greatest treasure. It cannot be stolen by storms. It cannot be hunted away. The more it is shared, the more powerful it becomes. Every lesson learned by those first humans became another stone in the foundation of civilization. Yet one discovery would transform human life more than any tool ever could. It would bring warmth on cold nights, light into darkness, protection from danger, and a new way for people to gather together. That discovery was fire, and it would change the story of humanity forever. Part 4. Fire changed everything. There are many moments that changed human history. The invention of the wheel, the discovery of electricity, the creation of the internet. But long before any of these, there was another discovery, perhaps the most important one of all. Fire. Today, we use fire without thinking. We cook our meals, we warm our homes, we light candles. We turn on a stove with the push of a button. But imagine seeing fire for the very first time. A bolt of lightning strikes a tree. Flames rise into the sky. Animals run away in fear. The forest glows with light. The first humans were probably frightened. Fire was powerful, beautiful, and dangerous. It could destroy an entire forest. But it also offered something no other force in nature could provide: warmth, light, protection, and opportunity. At first, humans did not know how to create fire. They likely found it after lightning storms or wildfires. Instead of letting the flames disappear, they carefully kept them alive. They carried burning branches. They protected glowing embers. They learned that keeping fire alive was just as important as finding food. One day, people discovered something extraordinary. Fire could cook food. This simple discovery changed everything. Cooked meat became easier to eat. Many plants became safer to digest. Food lasted longer. People gained more energy from what they ate. A stronger body helped create a stronger future. Fire also changed the night. Before fire, darkness belonged to wild animals. When the sun disappeared, danger increased. People stayed close together, hoping to survive until morning. But now the flames pushed many animals away. The light gave families more time together. For the first time, the day did not end when the sun went down. Around the fire, something beautiful began to happen. People talked, they laughed, they shared stories. The older members taught the younger ones. Hunters explained what they had learned. Children listened with wide eyes. These evenings did more than pass the time. They strengthened families. They built trust. They shared knowledge from one generation to the next. In many ways, the first classroom was not a building. It was a circle of people sitting around a fire. The first library was not filled with books. It was filled with stories. Stories about dangerous animals. Stories about brave hunters. Stories about survival. Stories that helped the next generation live another day. Fire also encouraged people to think differently. Instead of reacting to nature, they began shaping it. They learned to control something that once controlled them. That was a turning point. Human beings were becoming creators, not just survivors. As thousands of years passed, they discovered new ways to use fire. They hardened wooden spears, improved their tools, stayed alive during cold winters, expanded into places that had once been impossible to live. Every new use of fire opened another door. Every discovery made the next discovery possible. Fire became much more than heat. It became hope. It reminded people that intelligence could overcome fear, that patience could overcome difficulty, that small discoveries could change the future. If you think about it, human progress has always followed the same pattern. One person makes a discovery, others learn from it. The next generation improves it. That is how civilization grows. The same principle applies to learning English. The first new word may seem small. The first conversation may feel difficult. The first mistake may feel embarrassing. But every lesson becomes another spark. Every day you practice keeps that spark alive. And one day, those small sparks become confidence, then fluency, then opportunity. The greatest changes often begin with the smallest flame. As the fire burned brighter, something else began to grow beside it. Families became stronger. Communities became closer. People learned that surviving was no longer enough. Working together made life better. That simple idea would become the foundation of every village, every city, and every civilization that followed. And that is where the next chapter of our story begins. The birth of families, language, and human cooperation. Part 5. Families, language, and cooperation. As the years passed, the first humans discovered an important truth. Surviving alone was difficult. Surviving together was much easier. A single person could hunt a small animal, but a group could hunt something much larger. One person could watch for danger. Another could prepare food. Someone else could care for the children. Everyone had a purpose. Everyone mattered. This simple idea became one of the greatest strengths in human history. Cooperation. Imagine a small group sitting around a warm fire after a long day. The hunters return safely. The children run to greet them. The older members smile with relief. Food is shared. Stories are told. Plans are made for tomorrow. No one becomes stronger by keeping everything for themselves. They survive because they help one another. This spirit of sharing became the foundation of every future civilization. The first humans also learned something else. Knowledge should never stay with one person. If only one hunter knew where to find water, the group was in danger. If only one person knew how to make a sharp tool, the next generation might lose that skill. Knowledge had to be shared, and sharing required communication. At first, communication was probably very simple. People pointed with their hands. They used sounds. They made facial expressions. Slowly, those sounds became meaningful. Simple words appeared, then more words. Over many generations, language began to grow. Language became one of humanity's greatest inventions. It allowed people to teach more clearly, to plan before a hunt, to warn others about danger, to comfort someone who was afraid, to tell stories that inspired courage. Without language, ideas disappear. With language, ideas can travel across generations. Think about that for a moment. The words we speak today are part of a journey that began hundreds of thousands of years ago. Every conversation connects us with those first humans who searched for better ways to understand one another. Perhaps that is why learning another language is so special. When you learn English, you are not only learning new words, you are joining one of humanity's oldest traditions. The tradition of sharing ideas, the tradition of connecting with people, the tradition of learning from one another. Trust also became essential. Imagine going on a dangerous hunt. You must believe that your friends will protect you. You must believe they will not leave you behind. Without trust, cooperation falls apart. With trust, impossible challenges become possible. This lesson has never changed. Even today, great companies, successful families, and strong communities are all built on trust. The first humans understood this long before there were written laws. Kindness also had value. Caring for an injured member of the group made everyone stronger. Helping a child learn ensured the future of the community. Respecting older members preserved years of valuable experience. Compassion was not weakness, it was wisdom. Little by little, these simple values shaped human society. Helping, sharing, teaching, protecting, listening, working together. Civilization did not begin when people built cities. It began much earlier. It began when people realized, we are stronger together than we are alone. This may be the greatest lesson our ancestors ever discovered. Not fire, not tools, not hunting, but cooperation. Because every great achievement in human history has been built by people working together. The pyramids, the Great Wall, modern science, Space exploration. Even the device you are using to watch this video exists because millions of people shared knowledge across generations. Everything began with one small group learning to trust one another. Yet another great transformation was waiting. Humans would soon stop wandering from place to place. They would begin changing the land itself. This decision would reshape history forever. It would lead to villages, farms, cities, and eventually, the birth of civilization. That remarkable journey begins in our next chapter. Part 6. The Journey Toward Civilization. For thousands of years, the first humans lived as travelers. They followed the seasons. They followed the animals. They followed the rivers. Where food could be found, they went. When resources disappeared, they moved again. This way of life helped humanity survive. But it also created a new question. What if people no longer had to keep moving? No one knows exactly who first noticed it. Perhaps it was a woman gathering wild plants. Perhaps it was a child playing near a campsite. Or perhaps it was an old hunter watching nature closely. Someone realized that a seed falling into the ground could grow into a new plant. At first, it may have seemed like a small discovery. But history often changes because of small discoveries. Year after year, people learned more about the land. They noticed when plants grew. They observed the seasons. They understood that rain brought life. Little by little, they began working with nature instead of simply searching through it. This idea would eventually change everything. Families started staying in one place for longer periods. Simple shelters became stronger. People returned to the same rivers, the same valleys, the same open fields. A temporary camp slowly became a familiar home. For the first time, humans were not only adapting to the world, they were shaping it. The journey toward civilization had quietly begun. But the greatest change was not farming. It was the way people started thinking. Instead of asking, "How can we survive today?" they began asking, "How can we create a better tomorrow?" That single change in thinking transformed humanity. People started planning for the future. They stored food. They improved their tools. They prepared for the next season instead of worrying only about the next day. Hope became stronger than fear. The future became more important than the present moment. Curiosity continued leading them forward. They explored new lands, met different groups, shared ideas, learned better ways to live. Every generation inherited more knowledge than the one before it. The human story became a story of continuous learning. Think about everything we have discovered in this episode. The first humans were not kings. They built no great cities. They left behind no written books. Yet they gave us something far more valuable. They taught us to observe, to adapt, to cooperate, to learn, to keep moving forward even when life was uncertain. These simple lessons became the foundation of every civilization that followed. The pyramids of Egypt, the temples of Greece, the roads of Rome, the skyscrapers of modern cities. None of them would exist without those first courageous people who refused to give up. Their greatest invention was not a building. It was the belief that tomorrow could be better than today. That belief still lives inside us. Every time you learn a new skill, every time you solve a problem, every time you choose courage instead of fear, you continue the journey they began hundreds of thousands of years ago. Human civilization was never built in a single day. It was built one discovery at a time, one family at a time, one lesson at a time, one generation at a time. And our story has only just begun. In the next episode, we will witness one of the greatest turning points in human history. We will discover how wandering people became settled communities, how the first villages appeared, and how farming gave birth to the world's earliest civilizations. The journey of humanity continues. Our journey began in a world without cities, without roads, without writing, without history. At first, it seemed like a world completely different from our own. But as we traveled through time, we discovered something remarkable. The first humans were not so different from us. They dreamed of a better tomorrow. They protected their families. They searched for hope. And every day they faced challenges that tested their courage. They had no modern technology, no powerful machines, no great buildings. Yet they possessed something more valuable: a curious mind, a willing heart, and the determination to keep moving forward. Those simple qualities changed the future of humanity. Today, we often measure civilization by its tallest buildings, its fastest computers, or its greatest inventions. But civilization did not begin with stone walls or magnificent cities. It began with a question: how can we make tomorrow better than today? That question inspired every discovery, every tool, every lesson, every journey. The first humans never imagined airplanes crossing the sky. They never imagined people walking on the moon. They never imagined the internet connecting billions of people across the world. Yet every one of those achievements can be traced back to a small group of people who refused to stop learning. Their story is not only history, it is our story. Every family alive today carries a small part of their journey. Every language spoken today grew from the first conversations around ancient campfires. Every classroom continues a tradition that began when parents taught their children how to survive. Human civilization is more than a timeline of events. It is a story of curiosity, adaptation, cooperation, and hope. Perhaps that is the greatest lesson our ancestors left behind. The future is not built by extraordinary people. It is built by ordinary people who choose to learn, to help one another, and to keep moving forward despite uncertainty. That lesson is just as true today as it was hundreds of thousands of years ago. Whether you are learning English, building a new career, or chasing a lifelong dream, progress begins the same way it always has. One small step, one new idea, one brave decision. Before we end this journey, take a moment to imagine those first humans looking up at the same stars you can see tonight. They could never have imagined the world we live in. But because they survived, because they learned, because they never gave up, you and I are here today. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the beginning of human civilization. If you enjoyed this episode, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and join us for the next chapter of our story. In episode 2, we will explore one of the greatest revolutions in human history. How did people stop wandering, build the first villages, and begin farming the land? That is where civilization truly starts to take shape. Until then, keep learning, keep asking questions, and remember, the story of human civilization is not only about our past, it is the story of who we are and who we can still become.